Please join us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Welcome to our Monday, November 6th school board meeting. We will start with our agenda approval, deletions, additions. Dr. Baracco.
Thank you, Mrs. Seuss. You do have some revisions to the agenda under Roman numeral 7A2 and 7A4 under my section. Also 7B1 under personnel recommendations, 7C1 professional leaves, 7D1 some additional professional leaves, and 7G2 donations under Mr. James.
Move to approve the revised agenda.
Motion by Dr. Medlin,
Second?
second by Mrs. Kelly. Any discussion or questions? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Thank you. We're going to forego our liaison committee updates since we have recognitions as well as a packed agenda. So with that, we're going to move into our official school board business topics consent agenda. Dr. Baracco.
Thank you. Seek board approval for the minutes from our regular meeting on October 16th. Also board minutes from our special meeting on October 25th. Also seek board approval for the claims, payroll, and extracurricular expenditures you received in your packets last week.
Move to approve.
Motion by Mr. Marshall. Second. Second by Dr. Malco. Any discussion, questions? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. Thank you. We have no public comments regarding action items, so we'll move right into our official school board business topics, regular agenda. Dr. Baracco.
Thank you. If the board can reassemble in the front of the stage, we'd like to call up Mrs. Novak from the high school, who I believe is going to start us off with some recognitions of high school outstanding achievements tonight. Thank you.
Or you can do that. I'll just do that. That's good. Just. All right. Good evening, everybody. Thank you all for taking time to come. I know it's a busy night, a lot of homework, a lot of things that you need to do, but we really appreciate your time. It's a great night. It's a great night to be a Lake Central principal because we have so many outstanding achievements to recognize tonight in front of our school board. So I want to start with our students who received a letter of commendation from the National Merit Association, and these students are receiving their recognition for placing in the top 50,000 students who took the 2022 PSAT and MSQT test. So again, these students are scoring in the top 50,000 nationwide. So we will start off with Hunter Carroll. She's not here. Claire Chiabi. Leah Engels. Scott Huing. Anthony Jablonski. Congratulations, Anthony. Thank you. Oh, you get to. Thanks for being here. Annika Palm. Congratulations. Congratulations. Anthony Tortoriello. I'm sorry if I butchered that. I practiced. Congratulations, Anthony. Bao Tran. And Christian White. All right, are we taking pictures? Okay.
For the school, Joe and Aaron.
All right, the next student we are going to recognize tonight is our National Merit semifinalist, and Melitza placed in the top 16,000 of juniors who took the 2022 PSAT NMSQT exam, and she will advance in the scholarship competition. So, Melitza Lukic. All right, our next recognition is a recipient of our Harvard Book Award. And I have the book, it's in my office, so I'll have to speak with Ryan tomorrow and get him that book. But the Harvard Book Award, Ryan Hansen is our 2023 recipient of the Harvard Prize Book, and it's chosen for excellence in scholarship and high character. And this book is sponsored by Lake Central High School and Harvard alumna Gwen Hockman Stewart. So Ryan Hansen is our recipient for this. All right, next we get to recognize one of our faculty members, and she has had a pretty big weekend. We are going to recognize Mrs. Blandine Baldwin. She was selected as the Teacher of the Year by the American Association of Teachers of French for her excellent performance and dedication to world language and culture education. So that's the big, long, fancy description of her award, but if you know Miss Baldwin, she goes above and beyond for her students. As a teacher of French, she's wearing berets, she carries around a stuffed baguette, she's always trying to get the interest of so many kids, and she's got endless energy and will pour that into doing what's best for our students in our school. So there's no one quite like Mrs. Blandine Baldwin. She was recognized over the weekend, received some pretty significant awards, so we're here tonight to recognize her locally. Mr. Stanish?
I just want to say thank you for all your hard work and effort that you put in every day with our kids. You're unbelievable. Coming in there and observing your classroom, somebody that doesn't know much about French, your excitement and your enthusiasm, these kids just love it. They feed off of you, and your door is always open for kids, and you can see that how you interact with them. They love what you do, and you see it in their faces and their eyes every day. So thank you.
So Teacher of the Year, Mrs. Blandine Baldwin. And she makes great crepes, too. Congratulations.
And I hear she's taking a trip to France. Is that right? You think, oh, yeah. Yeah, possible study there. Okay, I'm sorry.
You get to go on the line. right, our next awards, there's 4 subcategories. These awards are recognized by College Board, and College Board recognizes some minorities and some underrepresented populations for high GPA and high performance on College Board exams. So those may be AP tests, PSAT, SAT. So again, high GPA top performers here at Lake Central High School. So the first group we are going to call up are being recognized by the College Board for the National Hispanic Recognition Award. So first we have Aliyah Abdullah. Mackenzie Kalinsky. Isabel Chavez. Olivia Guerrero. Joshua Lopez. Claire Luna. Dominic Negretti. How do you, I might have mispronounced that. Do you want to correct me? Negretti. There you go, Dominic. Thank you. Congratulations. Leisha Pina. Tara Schasberger. Congratulations, Tara. Ooh. Timothy Schmidl. Angel Vera. All right, our next group of students is being recognized by the College Board for high GPA and performance on College Board exams among all African American students. Dominic Irves. Angel Harrigan. Congratulations. And Brandon Lubeau. All right, our next student is being recognized by the College Board for her high GPA and performance on College Board exams among all Hispanic and African American students, and this is Faith Harrison. All right, and our final recognition, these students are being recognized by the College Board for high GPA and performance on College Board exams among students of rural and small towns. And we have Madeline Bickle, and Tyler Gagliardi.
One quick second, I just want to re-invite people that hadn't signed up. We are going to be having our Veterans Day ceremony on Wednesday at 7:45. Breakfast will begin if you have students that attend school here. Also, if you know veterans out in the Tri-Town area, everyone is welcome. We will have breakfast from 7:45 to 8:45 and hopefully start the ceremony close to 9 o'clock in the morning. But I wanted to I have a pin for our school board members that I wanted to hand out to you guys today. Normally, we started something new last year where we developed a pin in honor of Veterans Day. So this year we came up with another pin style, and we did it in, it looks like a poppy with our LC logo in the middle. So I just wanted to hand that out to the school board right now. Hopefully you guys can make it. If not, here's your little gift.
And again, I want to thank all of our students for their outstanding achievements. Thank all of you families, parents and friends and brothers and sisters for coming out tonight to recognize these outstanding achievements. We're going to continue with our regular business of the board. You're all welcome to stay for that, or if you have other things to get onto, this is a good time to exit. So thank you for coming out.
They were delivered today. Yep.
These are so cute. Aren't they nice? Yes. I love those. Very, very cute.
Okay, for my second agenda item this evening, it is the board meeting where we want to have the board reorganization resolution be adopted. I'd like to review the timeline first. At our last meeting, we opened discussion on the topic, and so tonight would be, if it goes as planned, the board will adopt the resolution to amend and restate our organization plan. Again, the reorganization of the board is limited to the fact that we have had a declining population in our unincorporated portions of our township, and so in the next time that the seat would be up in 2026, we are recommending that this become an at-large seat instead of restricted only to the unincorporated areas of our corporation. If the board adopts the plan tonight, later this week, we will publish notice of the adoption of the plan in one local newspaper. We will then have a 120-day period at which people have the chance to weigh in on the proposal, which will have already been published. Presuming that there's no petition, then we would send a planned amendment to the State Board of Education, which then they would sit on for about 6 weeks, and then they would take action either at their June or July meetings. And so the next step in this process is for us to take action on the board resolution. I would share with the board that since we broached this topic at our last board meeting, I have heard from 3 community members, all supportive of it, all thinking it's a good idea. I also shared it at the Schererville Chamber board meeting last Wednesday, November 1st, and I've heard no contact from any citizen expressing a disagreement as of today. So, any questions from the board prior to seeking action on the reorg plan?
So, Dr. Bracco, in theory, nothing has changed because everybody votes for everybody. Like Schererville doesn't vote for just Schererville. Schererville votes for everybody. So in theory, all we're doing is changing the name from unincorporated to at-large, correct?
Well, it is a change, though, because in the past, one member of this board always had to come from the unincorporated areas. And so now that requirement will no longer exist. Those folks who live in the unincorporated areas always could run for the unincorporated seat or the at-large seat. Now we'll just have, if it goes through, we'll just have 2 at-large seats. So they'll still have 2 opportunities, but they'll be competing against people possibly from the entire district. Whereas in the past, up until now, we've had the unincorporated territories are represented on our board. There's no guarantee that the unincorporated areas would be represented moving forward if they become at-large seats.
Correct. That's what's happened in the past. Thank you.
Seek board approval?
Motion by Dr. Malko,
I'll second that.
second by Mrs. Kelly. Any questions or discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Thank you.
Thank you. We will continue with the process that was in the outline that I shared last week. I've updated it, and that updated outline is at your workstation this evening. My third item this evening is to just update the board really quickly on the Tobacco Coalition Lake County Community Conversation that took place Saturday morning at the Dean and Barbara White Center in Maryville. I sat on a panel. Prior to the panel discussion about what we're doing to try to help educate students about the dangers of tobacco use and vaping, the Indiana Department of Health did do their presentation. And just for the board's information, most of the data that they use in their analysis comes from the Youth Tobacco Risk Survey that's conducted every even year. So it was done in 22 in the fall, and then they disaggregate the data in the spring. It's important to note that they did switch the survey to an online format in 2020, also a year during COVID when they got low participation or low response rate. So they didn't totally trust the data from 2020. But as they try to informally compare the data in 2022 to the past, they've shown a decline in high school and middle school use. And while they show an overall decline in regular use of tobacco products, they did show a significant shift from traditional cigarettes to vaping devices among those people who still declared that they were using it. It was interesting from our discussion in the panel that many of the districts are writing tickets to offenders if they're caught using these devices on school ground and regular cigarettes too. It's about a $300 ticket. We've, as you know, at Lake Central, tried to go the education route, and while we try to avoid suspending, at some point we need to send a stronger message to our students who are making sometimes other students uncomfortable when they're smoking in the restrooms or vaping in the restrooms. We talked about the top concern, and among most of the panel, it was that the industry has really gone out of their way to target youth with flavored products, cotton candy and vanilla fudge and black raspberry and blue raspberry and on, watermelon. They've created vaping devices that blend in with everyday items like flash drives and fake phone cases, hoodie strings that lead to a reservoir in the back of the hood and so forth. And so it is something that I would like to see our legislators take a look at. If the product is a product that adults want to enjoy, why can't it just look like what it is instead of disguising it? And then the other big concern is that there's a misguided belief out there among some youth that the vaping devices are much safer than traditional tobacco. And there's some mixed reports on whether that's true. Some of the devices, interesting, and I didn't know this until Saturday, have the capacity to provide 3,000 to 5,000 puffs on the vaping device. And so they've come a long way on that. And so I think based on cost, you're seeing how some young people can be tempted to switch to a vaping device from traditional tobacco products, cigarettes and cigars and so forth. The Department of Health did appreciate that in the information I passed out that our staff and I don't want to take credit for this, we have Lori Smith from Clark and some other staff members who have, they run our program, our education program for our students, but they have utilized parts in their materials that have come from the Indiana Department of Health and other sources, and they were happy because I thank them for giving us material that we didn't have to recreate. Some of the slides or charts right out of their documents. And so, the Department of Health is trying to encourage all schools to at least try some restorative practice before they get into punitive things with students, given that these products make students addicted rather quickly. And so, once again, I think our program is affirmed by the people at the state level. But I think it's important for our community to know that after 2 times the third offense, you do get suspended. So we haven't gone totally away from punishment for repeat offenders. So any questions about that topic from the board?
I don't have a question about it, but I do think that it's a really good plan that you've put together. There's some places where they expel the students for the entire year for such an event, and I think guidance and leadership from us is pretty important, so the model seems very solid to me, so thank you for that.
Okay, thank you. My final item is just to seek board approval for Dr. Malco, Mrs. Suze, and myself to attend the ISBA Legal Seminar on Indianapolis at Ivy Tech on December 8th.
So moved.
Motion by Mr. Marshall,
Second.
second by Dr. Medlin. Any questions? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. Thank you.
Thank you.
And now on to our Assistant Superintendent, Mrs. Castaneda.
Thank you. For my first item, I am seeking your approval for the personnel recommendations, the revised copy that you received this evening.
Move to approve the personnel recommendations.
We have a motion by Dr. Medlin, and I will second that. Any discussion or questions? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes.
Thank you. For my second item, I am seeking the board's approval for the professional leave requests.
Motion to approve?
Motion by Mrs. Kelly,
Second.
second by Dr. Malco. Any questions, discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes.
Thank you. And for my last item, I am seeking the board's approval for the new collective bargaining agreement as well as the administrative and classified pay raises.
Motion to approve?
Motion by Mrs. Kelly,
Second.
second by Mr. Marshall. Any discussion, questions? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Thank you.
Thank you.
And now on to our Director of Primary Education, Dr. Bracy.
Good evening. I am requesting approval for the professional leave request in your packets.
So moved.
Motion by Mr. Marshall,
Second.
second by Dr. Medlin. Any discussion, questions?
What is LETRS training?
Letters, that's the letters training I had presented to you all a couple of weeks ago. It provides our teachers with different strategies on ways to teach students. So at this time, we have 39 teachers going through the program.
Okay, and the
reading specialists.
LETRS, could you
Yes.
repeat that slowly and loudly so I could hear you?
It is a professional development course. It's 8 different days, and it provides teachers with strategies on different ways to work with our students.
And so what does the L stand for and the E and the TRS? Different parts of the reading?
I don't know. I don't think, I'll find out for sure.
Oh, I'm just curious. No big deal. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes.
Are they using the screen?
Yes.
I'm going to get out of the way.
So as we all know, the science of reading is coming. Last year, we started hearing rumblings about it coming from the state. Actually, it's a federal initiative, and we don't have much guidance, but we didn't want to be left in the dark. We wanted to have a jump start whenever the guidance is released from the state. So the magic began last year in about May. I met with these fabulous 4 people. They are Beth Hamaker, our tech trainer for elementary, Julie Moore, another tech trainer for elementary, Lisa Alessandri, our math coach, and then Deanne McDermott, our literacy coach. They have been meeting with every single teacher in every single grade level at every single elementary school this year. So they're here to present to you their Fab 4 presentation.
Do you mind doing introductions again? I was caught over there and I didn't hear them all. I'm sorry.
So Julie Moore is one of our elementary tech trainers. Beth Hamaker is one of our elementary tech trainers. Lisa Alessandri is our math coach for elementary. And Deanne McDermott is our literacy coach for elementary. Okay.
Thank you.
Go click us over to the 21st century. Okay, so in case you want to refer to these slides later for personal enjoyment. So we wanted to just kind of give you a very quick overview. As Dr. Bracy said, we met with all elementary teachers in all 6 schools over the course of the last 3 months. And so we're just going to kind of give you a quick version. They got 3 hours with us, pretty much an hour per topic. We're going to narrow it down to about 10 minutes per topic, so hang with us. But we did include extra slides in here that the elementary educators did get, so just as we're kind of going along, we're going to skip over a few, but they are here if you wanted to refer back to them. Okay? So just to start, we covered 3 topics, the 4 C's of 21st century learning, building a thinking classroom, using strategies to keep our students more engaged, and then the science of reading and how that is going to look different than the curriculum that we currently have in the elementary level. So we gave all of our staff some discussion and reflection questions you see there. Okay. And then Julie and I started off by explaining the 21st century skills and where this came about. If you're not familiar with it, next one. The 21st century skills were developed by educators as well as leading corporations in the nation, and they came up with what our students will need to be successful in a global economy. And you might be surprised to see that it doesn't just say English, math, and science up there. The 21st century skills are much more involved. And so at the elementary level, our initiative this year is to focus on the 4 C's, or the top ones in the list: critical thinking, creativity, collaboration, and communication. Also, we've been pointing out to our staff at the elementary level that 2 of those C's, communication and collaboration, are now part of the ELA standards from the Indiana Department of Ed. So we've been making mention of that and notice of that with our teachers as well. And then we've been working, Julie and I, we've been working with our elementary staff to understand that incorporating the 4 C's of 21st century learning into our curriculum it's possible. It's not putting more on a teacher's plate. It's just adapting what teachers already do. And we use the SAMR model here to try and give them some suggestions and kind of model how we can all move together to develop a curriculum that is more enhanced with the 4 C's. Okay. And so I'm going to hand it over to Julie. We're going to start to show you just a couple examples of what we've been doing in classrooms since we've started working with the elementary teachers.
Okay, so if you look over here, we have, we're trying to do collaboration amongst the classroom, but also outside of the classroom. So we have some examples here. We have some students that are collaborating at grade level from building to building. So we are using a program called FLIP, and the bottom left-hand side here, that one is an example of a student. They are introducing themselves to another class at Bibbage. From Homan to Bibbage. And then the other side, we're using Google Drive, and also they were using Flip, but we have a 4th grade class at Protzman, and they were helping 2nd graders learn how to use Google Drive, Google Slides, and then they were showing them how to help them edit their writing. So that was an example. They made a pumpkin, and they had to use copy and paste to edit their pumpkin, and then the fourth graders help them with their editing. So, and then
A couple other quick examples that we had. For some teachers that seemed maybe a bit overwhelmed with the adapting their curriculum to the 4 Cs, we've been going into their classrooms and just doing little steps that add to what they're already doing. So for instance, we had third grade classes that were reading a tale called Pop's Bridge. If you're not familiar with it, it's a tale of 2 young boys who watch their family as they're building the Golden Gate Bridge, and of course there's a collapse and an accident, and they kind of live through what it's like until they find out that their relatives are okay. But anyway, in order for our students to be able to have a little more creativity as they're reading and writing, and discussing the story, we suggest that they use something like Google Earth or Google Maps just to take their students there. It's something that we have never had access to 10 years ago, 15 years ago, 20 years ago. We heavily relied on encyclopedias, right, and pictures inside of encyclopedias. You had to hope there was a picture inside the encyclopedia that maybe would work. And now we can take our students virtually anywhere. And so we suggested that the third grade teachers bring up, either in Google Earth or Google Maps, the Golden Gate Bridge, and let the students start to make some, you know, talk about and discuss what they see, not just what they hear in the stories. In addition, we had a second grade class at Pfeiffer. They always do a report on bats, and so to give it the spin and add a little of the 4 Cs to it, we suggested that her students break into groups and they would collaborate on just one chapter or one topic each, and then they would use the program Flip to record what they learned, and then the students would watch all of the videos and essentially learn about all 9 chapters, but they only were responsible for one. And so we're teaching the students that not only are you responsible for your work, but you're dependent on somebody else to do their work too, and trying to build what that collaboration really means. And so that took place in the BAT activity. And once the students watched each other's videos, they were familiar with the entire book without having to necessarily read the entire book all independently. So just a couple of examples there. We have some other examples as well. We could go on all night long about how our teachers have been implementing the 4 Cs. But we're going to turn it over to Lisa Alessandri, the math coach, who has also been giving teachers some suggestions that conveniently also incorporate the 4 Cs.
Okay, so for my part, when we've been meeting with our teachers in grades K through 4 at each building, I've been talking about building thinking classrooms. So over the summer, I went to a conference in Franklin, Indiana with some of our elementary teachers. Some of our middle school and high school teachers also went as well. So I think that this is great that we're starting this year, not just at the elementary level, but also the secondary level as well. So the book talks about 14 really good practices and strategies that are going to help our students with those 21st century skills, with getting them to communicate, collaborate, use more critical thinking and creativity in the classroom. I'm also leading a book study right now with a good amount of our teachers that started in October, and then I'll be finishing up this month in November. So we've kind of been dissecting a couple of chapters at a time and talking about how they can use some of the strategies in their classroom with their students. So as we've been meeting with grade levels, I've just been focusing with our teachers. A lot of our teachers have these large vertical surfaces from the White Book Company. So in our classrooms right now, grades 1, 2, 3, and 4, a lot of our teachers were interested in this and wanted to work on building more communication and collaboration. So, you know, in the past, a lot of our students have had just regular white dry erase boards that they've used at their desks. So instead of sitting for a long period of time, The idea from the book talks about putting these large erasable surfaces up on the walls in the classrooms for the students to write on. And based on the research from the book of over a decade of research that they've conducted from 35 different classrooms from K through 12, they found out students participated better. They were more willing to discuss with the surfaces being up on the walls in their classroom. Students could get ideas from other vertical surfaces and look and see how other students approach solving problems, and kind of the main learning of what takes place. I've been providing rich math tasks that the teachers can use as well as the Reveal math curriculum that they use on a daily basis. But kind of the powerful part of using this and having them up on the walls in the classroom is that they can see everyone's work, that they get a lot of knowledge mobility, and then our teachers have also been doing more discovery learning with math, to where the students have to collaborate with each other, communicate, discuss, and then our teachers follow up at the end of the lesson with doing a gallery walk and looking at different samples of work and different strategies that they want to draw attention to. And that's kind of where the learning takes place, is at the end of the lesson from looking at the work on the vertical surfaces. All right, and this is just a little bit of research that I took from the book. When kids are standing at the vertical surfaces, it's going to increase their mood, their energy level, especially for our teachers that teach math in the afternoon. I've had a lot of teachers already reach out saying, oh my gosh, the kids are so much more energized. They're, excited about math. And just seeing what they come up with too has been really powerful. A lot of our teachers have been taking pictures of their work on the vertical surfaces, and then they can even refer back to them the next day with their lessons. When kids are sitting for too long, they start to feel anonymous. Like, we know which ones are going to participate, which ones aren't. With them working at the vertical surfaces, it's just been more empowering for students. They feel like they have more leadership qualities, that everybody that works in the group is important and has a role, and whether it's, computation that they're working on, that each person in the group has a really vital role in the part of the process to make this work and to get that collaboration and communication working between groups. The teachers are also grouping their students with the vertical surfaces in random groups. So the kids are not always working with the same students on a daily basis. They're learning that they have to collaborate with all of their classmates and not just with certain students all the time. These are just some resources that I shared out with the teachers. A lot of our teachers have been using that visual on the left, the whiteboard expectations, because kids are having to unlearn typical behaviors of what they've been used to for so long. So now they're teaching them new expectations when they're working at their surfaces, how to work in random groups, how to share a marker. That, some teachers are having the kids work in groups of 3s. They get one dry erase marker to share, and they can't scribe their own ideas. They have to actively listen to others in their group to work on that communication and collaboration piece. And then there's just some guiding questions on the right that I shared out with teachers as well, that we don't want to just lead kids to answers and have them copy or mimic our behaviors. We want them to keep thinking and to be able to problem solve. And that's what the 14 practices in this book talks about, is how to get kids to be better thinkers and better problem solvers, to where they don't just have one way to figure out answers, and they have multiple methods, and that they can learn from their peers. This is just a staircase step that I thought was really important, just to kind of explain and justify how we could take math problems or math lessons that teachers might be working on a certain topic, let's say it be fractions, and that we start at the low level of the staircase, but as students get more involved and they work on a topic for a longer period of time, the goal is we want students to get to the top of the staircase where they're teaching what they learn to other students and that they're creating their own type of questions and problems so that they're getting more of the 4 C's. And these are just some pictures just from classrooms. A first grade teacher at Holman had her vertical surfaces up, so there's a little bit of space, as you can tell on the wall, just for kids to actively work together and collaborate. And then these are some pictures from classrooms that I was in last week, a 4th grade class at Watson and another 4th grade class at Pfeiffer. The kids were working on multiplying 2-digit by 1-digit factors and trying to figure out how they could use the distributive property with area models. And the white book on the left was a geometry lesson where students were given 4 different polygons, and then they had to incorporate writing along with what they were working on and explain which polygon they thought didn't belong in the group. And it was amazing how many different ways kids came up with solutions. Like half of them I didn't even think of while I was in the room until we did a gallery walk and we looked at their work. So just a lot of powerful learning is coming from this. I feel like a lot of our teachers are invigorated this year with trying this, and our students are just, they're more engaged and they're liking this style of learning. So, all right, and I'll just leave everybody with that. So I think this is what we're getting out of the building thinking classrooms with our students this year, is that we want them to just be better thinkers, problem solvers, and have ways that they can approach problems differently. All right, I'm gonna just skip through these slides here so that Deanne can give you a little digestible overview of the science of reading.
I don't think so. Which one is mine? And that, will that thing is that? Okay. Got to figure out the technology. All right, so like they were saying, we had about 3.5 hours to work with teachers on these concepts, I could talk about science of reading for 3 hours by myself, so trying to get this into about a 5-minute presentation, because I don't want to keep you guys all night, is going to be very, very, very difficult. So I'm going to give you a very, very condensed version. I also noticed that a lot of you have printed slides, and I changed a couple of things today, so if it's a little different, that's probably why. We'll skip through some of these first things. Let's just get to the definition. So you might have a different definition there. I pulled this one off of the Reading League. But what is science of reading? You may have heard that it's coming down from the state. It is a mandated initiative. This is not anything that LC is putting forward. It's not anything that we have a choice about. This is nationally mandated, and then Indiana is finally getting on board. So it's here whether we like it or not. The good news is most of our teachers are super excited. They're on board 100%. So that's good news. But basically it's research. The science of reading is research about reading, and basically it comes from what we know now about the brain and how the brain learns how to read. So we now know more about the brain than we ever have before. And we're going to now take that information that we know and use it to inform best practices in how to teach reading. So it just makes sense, right? It's what we should have been doing all along, but we've been, I think, for far too long listening to what publishers have told us about what good reading looks like, or certain gurus in education, rather than just listening to the science and looking at the research. All right, so we're kind of getting back in line. This is a visual that I think is really, really powerful. It's called Scarborough's Reading Rope. So Hollis Scarborough, back in the 1990s. So this research, by the way, has been around for a long time. This is nothing new. Research has been going on for about 4 decades now, informing best practice. So now we're just kind of falling in line with that research as it's tightening up with our brain knowledge. So here's Scarborough's reading rope. And if you take a look at this, it's actually really powerful. It's worth spending a few minutes on. So there's 2 strands to this rope. There's the word recognition strand at the bottom, and then there's the language comprehension strand at the top. And what it shows us is all of the components of skilled reading, but it breaks it down into individual strands. And if you look at the bottom there, that's your word recognition. That's everything word related when it comes to reading. So you've got your phonological awareness. That's all of your phonemes and your sounds. Students should learn sounds before they even learn letters. Once the alphabetic code is introduced, that's your decoding strand, also at the bottom. That's your phonics piece and spelling. And then your sight recognition, that's familiar words or words that you have memorized because you've done your phonics work and you've learned how to read words. But all of the word recognition is there at the bottom. If you look, each one of those has its own little strand, but that rope, as it gets tightened up, has to become increasingly automatic. Those are skills that have to be fast. And the reason for that is because we can't have kids in 2nd and 3rd grade still thinking about how to, what does a G look like, which way does the G go, or how do I spell a simple word? Because if I'm focusing, if my cognition or my focus is there, I can't be focused on the harder stuff that I need to be focused on for the reading, for the higher level reading to take place. So the language comprehension at the top, if that is automatic and fluent, I can devote all of my brain power to the language comprehension part of the rope. So the language comprehension part of the rope, if you look at the top, when we think about comprehension, we have been teaching a lot of skills and strategies. So teachers know these skills in isolation because that's the way our standards have been written. So we teach things like main idea, we teach things like cause and effect, fact and opinion, sequencing, author's purpose, theme, I could go on and on and on. And teachers know these really, really well. They have a place up there, but they all fall in one strand of that rope. And that's the literacy knowledge strand. That's your knowledge of all your skills and strategies that help you be a reader. So there is a place for that. And it's important that teachers teach that. But we can't neglect the other parts of the rope. And so what we've been, I think, not stressing enough is, number one, background knowledge. That research shows is a huge factor in reading comprehension. So we need to, I've been telling teachers that time that you feel might just be wasted time at the beginning of a lesson to show video clips, to show pictures, to talk, hey, what do you already know about this topic? What do you want to learn more about this? That connection piece, that raises interest, motivation, and it gets kids excited about learning. And that is a huge part of the comprehension piece. It's not wasted time. It's actually very valuable time. We've got to start spending time there. Vocabulary, publishers usually have some words that they have deemed important that come with a story in a reading textbook or whatnot. But we have to be very focused on what types of vocabulary words that we're introducing to kids. If they're too easy, we don't need to be spending or wasting our time on them. If they're way too hard, similarly, we don't need to be spending time on those either. We need to be focusing on what we would call tier 2 vocabulary words and going back, revisiting them often, and working on them intentionally. So that vocabulary piece is huge. Language structure, that's something that I think has been really neglected because think of that as more like your grammar piece, your sentence structure. As soon as those sentences start getting complex with a lot of commas in there and appositives and dependent clauses and independent clauses and all of that, those kids lose comprehension, and it's not because they don't understand skills. It's just because the sentence is throwing them off. So we have to intentionally teach that type of thing too with comprehension. And then the verbal reasoning, you know, sometimes kids will read something, they start to write about it or answer questions about it, and you're thinking, what did you read? Because this has nothing to do with what we talked about or what we read. It's probably because there was inferential stuff in there, or there were similes, metaphors, figurative language that just went right over their heads. So we have to intentionally pre-teach and front-load all of those types of skills before we even get to our skills and strategies that we teach all the time. So there's a lot to comprehension, and if you'll notice, that part of the rope has to get increasingly strategic while the word recognition is getting increasingly automatic to eventually get to a place where we have skilled readers. So this is what the research is showing us about skilled reading, and now we're just moving in this direction, which is really exciting, and teachers are excited to get there too. So structured literacy is just another term that I use, or I don't use it, a lot of people talk about structured literacy in connection with science of reading, as opposed to what we've been using, which is balanced literacy. Balanced literacy has a really nice ring to it, but it actually came out of the reading wars. I don't know if you're familiar with, you've got your whole language camp, your phonics camp. Balanced literacy was kind of a nice middle of the road. Let's try to make everyone happy. And for the last 20 years or so, this is the model we have been using. But research is showing that that hasn't been effective. We don't have the scores that we'd like to see. Kids are not getting better at reading and writing. So now we're going more back towards a structured literacy approach. So I'm not going to spend time on these, but it's basically spending a lot more time on phonics instruction, fluency. Fluency is a big component. We have to make kids automatic, fluent, oral readers, because that does translate to comprehension. Spending time on vocabulary, which I already talked about. And then comprehension, actually the National Reading Panel did a big study, published a report on the effective strategies in teaching reading. They actually found out that there's only a few strategies that actually improve comprehension. And a lot of these are not the ones we're working on. We've been putting all of our eggs in that skills and strategies basket, and we haven't been focusing enough on teaching kids how to self-monitor their own comprehension, how to collaborate with peers, how to use story maps and organizers, understanding text structures, that one's huge, generating questions. We're the ones that have been generating all the questions, but having them generate the questions is really powerful, and summarizing. A lot of times when kids are struggling with comprehension or they're not doing well on tests, we assume that it's because they don't know or they don't understand the skills that we're teaching. So we need to spend more time on those skills, when actually it's probably not the skills at all. It's probably something else. I'm going to show you, there it is. I'll just go back to this. Okay, so this is a passage from a 3rd grade PARCS test. It's a Common Core test, very, very similar to what our iLearn looks like. So I don't think a lot of people realize just how difficult the 3rd grade iLearn reading test is. If you look at this, you might be very surprised. This is 3rd grade. And now if they have to answer really complex questions about that, main idea, inferring, cause and effect, it's cognitive overload, because not only do I not know what a lot of those words are, that sentence structure is very difficult. I've got some vocabulary that I'm not familiar with. If I have no background knowledge about that area of the world, I'm already at a severe disadvantage, and now you're asking me to do really hard work with it. So I'm never going to be able to control what is on iLearn, And this is what, we tell teachers, that's out of our hands. But if we can provide kids with a lot of great vocabulary and teaching them that complex sentence structure, and teaching them really great, giving them the background knowledge that they might need with teaching them about different environments, different cultures, different places in the world, different habitats, then they're at least somewhat prepared to take a test like that and not worrying so much about those isolated skills.
Are we allowed to have a pencil and highlight important words?
It's online. There is a highlighting, tool they can use. There are certain tools that they give them, like blocking tools. They can block out some of it and only see.
That text, make it readable and understandable, it takes some work.
It does, and that's actually a very short passage. In a lot of cases, they have to read, like that's just one paragraph of a very long passage. They have to read 2 or 3 of those passages and then compare and contrast them and do stuff with them. It's a lot. It's a lot, yeah. So, so then all we can do is just help them navigate that as best we can, right? And then, so this I just wanted to put up there as Indiana's Science of Reading mandate. So the law was passed back in May, and under this new legislation, districts must adopt aligned materials and cannot use materials that include the 3 cueing system, which that's just basically that balanced literacy that I was talking about a minute ago. So our teachers are super excited. They're all on board. They're ready to jump in with Science of Reading. Problem is, they don't have the materials to do so. So everything we have right now in our reading curriculum is aligned to balanced literacy, not structured literacy. So we will be up for reading adoption either next year or in 2 years. Correct me if I'm wrong. We have to wait and see if we get the Science of Reading grant, correct? But it's coming. So when I talk to teachers, the frustration I feel is just I'm ready to get started and I don't know how. So I guess my appeal to you, the board, is that when this does come down, we will need a lot of financial support to hopefully adopt a very streamlined, very cumulative program that includes everything that teachers are going to need to execute this well.
You might check into Education Foundation. There's money there for grants. And that would be a wonderful way to use it.
Yeah.
To jumpstart what you're doing.
We've got, teachers are excited. They've been pulling things, just as best they can, pulling phonics materials if they feel like, that's weak, pulling vocabulary materials. But right now, our curriculum is just I feel piecemealed in that way. I think what teachers are hoping for is when this comes through, that we will have a nice, cumulative, scoped and sequenced curriculum that is consistent among the schools, among the grade levels that build in skills. So that's where we might need your support. All right, any questions?
Do they still do those literacy grants? Who's still on them? Oh, do we still do literacy grants? Are you talking about like the early intervention grants? I just remember they were called the literacy grants, that's all I remember.
No, there are all types of grants now, but a lot of the older grants, they're gone.
So maybe some of the newer ones. Vocabulary, do we not have a vocabulary book anymore? Or do we, no? So the teachers must develop their own as a team.
So we use Words Their Way, but we don't have a comprehensive program.
Okay. And at one point in time, we had adopted the Latin and Greek out of the core curriculum, not the core, what was that called? The big curriculum that was ran across America, and Indiana chose not to be involved with it. What was it? Common Core. Common Core. Who is this from? Oh, yeah. Remember the Common Core curriculum, and we chose to continue with the Latin and Greek.
Yeah, that we
So we-
adopted 90% of Common Core.
Yeah.
We
most of the standards in Indiana are common. Most of the standards in Indiana follow the Common Core. There's about 15% that is unique to Indiana. And they still have us teaching those components of vocabulary, like prefixes, suffixes, Greek and Latin roots, but it's not on the old Sadler Oxford vocabulary books and things like that that we used to use, because what research found was that kids would just memorize that, take the quiz, move on, and then there really wasn't retention of it because it wasn't done in context.
What is the reaction, or the impact, I should say, on the classroom teacher? Because, at least when I was in the business, classrooms were very busy, very filled, with a lot of activities. And so what is the reaction on the classroom and the dynamics when these programs occur?
Are you referring to when, as it's coming about, are they excited to get started?
We're talking about the fact that there's just one more thing that we're adding, the balance of everything that's happening.
You know, when we presented it to teachers, my goal is to never present something that looks like I'm adding something to a teacher's plate. Their plate is so beyond full. So when I'm presenting this to them, I'm explaining that it's really it's a mind shift. It's a different way of looking at what you have. So one way that we have suggested helping teachers out with that is to try to incorporate their science and social studies content and material into that English language arts block. Because, you know, if you're reading about, I don't know, natural disasters, let's say, in science, then you might as well be doing it in reading, you might as well be writing about it, your vocabulary should be centered around that. It's more of that thematic type instruction. Yeah. It is. It sticks much better, you know. So we've been trying to do it that way, and teachers, I think, are excited about that, but again, it's just with what?
Well, I would guess that you're older. When I say older, I mean that very kindly. And the more experienced teachers have a lot of that still under their belt, because that's the way we taught for years and years, at least in the reading part.
It's true.
I knew that phonics was leaving. I knew it because, anyway, I know because we had some students that we hosted at the college students that were not being taught phonics at the college level, so.
Right.
Now we're cleaning up that mess up, aren't we? Yeah.
Seems like it, yes. So, anyway, thank you for your time and attention.
You guys have a lot of work to do.
Yep. So I actually have 2 items and then 2 presentations. Do you want me to switch the order?
Yes, we'll do the presentation.
Okay, perfect. All right, so I reversed my order a little bit, and we'll do the professional leave and field trip requests after this. But right now, I have the privilege of introducing to you Mr. Bob Gustus. You probably already know, math teacher and math department chair at Clark Middle School. You might also recognize Mr. Gustus from his work at theater, both at the middle level and the high school level. And tonight, he is here to share strategies that he's learned and implemented from building thinking classrooms, much like what you've just heard about, but at the secondary level. And what's really exciting here is that Mr. Gustus has not only embraced the strategies and implemented them in his own classroom, but he's sharing these with other teachers. He actually had 3 teachers from another middle school visit his 8th period today. And so teachers are asking about it, they hear how excited he is, they want to know more about it, and he's invited them in. So we're building some great momentum here, and I love that it is aligning with what elementary is doing, so it's just coming at a very nice time of vertical articulation. We've also got math teachers at the high school utilizing the strategies. So I present to you Mr. Bob Gustus.
All right, good evening, everyone. Thank you, board, for having me here. Thank you also, Ms. Schoeneman, for getting materials and stuff for the middle school and high school teachers to do this. I went to the conference just like they did back here this summer, and I didn't understand it at first because I got the book, I read it, didn't understand it. I went to see it, and I liked it, and I embraced it, and I said, if I'm going to do this, I'm doing it 100%. So I have changed my whole classroom around. Here we go. It says, what is this? Why am I doing a building thinking classroom instead of traditional classroom style of teaching? The questions, it's what training do I need? What does it mean? How does it work? Is it for everyone in math? How do you begin to use this? What do I need for my classroom? These were all questions that I had to start this. And then behind it, students think for themselves. They stand. They stand for 45 minutes of class every period. Well, that's not true. It's more like 43 minutes. And you'll see why. We use vertical non-permanent surfaces, whiteboards, which you saw back there, but they don't have to be whiteboards. They say you could use windows or filing cabinets or anything. I stick with the whiteboards. I don't really want to go that far. But there's a lot of collaboration in the classroom. Students use each other to learn. I don't really teach as much. They learn from each other. I've defronted the classroom. I'm going to show you what that means. I don't have a traditional front of the classroom anymore. It is anywhere in the room I will stand and talk to the kids. So if you walk in my room and you'll see a picture of it. And then finally, there's less stress on students and teachers. The students on some of the things that I do are less stressed out. They're really relaxed. They look forward to quizzes to take, which is kind of odd, but they relax. They're not as nervous. So I think here's my classroom when you walk in. As you see, they're in groups of 3, as you heard talked about earlier. They're in 3. You can see the whiteboards around my classroom. When they walk in, you can see this little table right here. There's a deck of cards on here. There's a basket. In the basket has a whiteboard. A marker. It has an eraser and has a calculator, and that's all that they get. The cards are important because that's how I put them in groups every day. They get a different group every day. They don't get the same student every day. Sometimes they do, sometimes they don't. Sometimes they get their friends. Sometimes they don't. So here, I just take the cards each day they walk in. I put the cards out on a table or a desk. As you can see, they walk in and they grab one. They're in groups of 3. Whatever card they get, that's the group they're in. Whoever gets the club, which is kind of funny, I had to teach them what clubs meant, but whoever gets the club goes and grabs the basket. And that's what they use, and that's their group. And around the room, back here, on the whiteboards, I have the 4th card, which is the diamond, is on the whiteboard. So that's how they know what group that they're in for the day. So they go to their spot, and then, first thing, they say you have to get them involved thinking the first 3 to 5 minutes of class. After 5 minutes, thinking goes down. So they get their card, they go up, they get a non-curricular, highly engaging activity, and here's this one. Okay, I'm not going to make you guys solve it, but this is what it is. 10 triangles facing to the right. You have to move 3 and get it moved to the left. And so the kids will go up. Don't tell them a thing. They have to figure out how to move it. So they have to move 3 to get them to go face the other way. The ironic part was we did this all day. I did it with my algebra class. I did it with my 7th grade advanced. I did it with my regular 7th grade class. Got it. We got done. One student in my algebra class did it different than everybody else the whole day, which was actually kind of cool. So I'm not telling you the answer. You're going to have to figure it out yourself. If you want to know, I'll tell you at the end. Okay? But how do I run it? The first thing that happens, I don't give any notes in class. I used to have it, kids write on the board, I write on the board, write notes, whatever. That was more of an I do, you do kind of activity. But here's what kids say why they take notes. Their answers are, because the teacher said I had to. That's what I'm supposed to do. Teachers say I have to do or I get in trouble, and teachers will say it helps the students study. You ask the kids, they don't do any of those. They only take notes because they have to. So what do? I have my notes set up this way. From what I've learned, I have it set up in 4 sections. There's a vocab section, 2 example sections, and then what I call the big idea concept section. Kids take their notes up with them as we're doing things. If they want to write it down, they write down what they think is important. If they already know the vocab, why do I need them to write it down? If they know how to do the questions I'm doing in class already, what do I need them to do it for? They're writing down what they need. These are now what I call meaningful notes. So when they go back and study, they're not studying 15, 20 pages worth of stuff. They're studying what they feel like they need. If they don't write anything down, they don't write anything down. I'll tell them, I think this is important, but they don't want to, they don't have to. Okay, Dr. Malkow, this is especially for you. Is there data behind building thinking classrooms? And absolutely there is. If you look here, and I know you guys got a copy of it, it'll say here like time on task. Based in minutes, they get 7 minutes when they're doing vertical boards and writing things out, as opposed to the other one. How long does it take them to get started? It takes them 20 seconds to get started when they're doing it on a vertical board. If they're doing it on paper at their desk, you can see what the time does. But this is in the book, but these are some things that vertical classrooms actually does work. There is research behind it. This was a question I did in class. It was my algebra class. They had to graph all these different things. Here was about a dolphin jumping out of the ocean, and they had to tell me where it was positive, negative, decreasing, the maximum, the end behavior, and where the symmetry was. And as you can see, the kids are standing up, they're on the boards, writing it down and drawing it out. And the neat thing is this class has 30 students in it, and instead of me having to watch and try to see what 30 students are doing, I'm watching 10 groups around, and the kids are watching each other do it. They're writing. As you can see, my nice little smiley face people right there, they're all like twins. But anyway, the neat thing is, as they're working on it, they're working in groups of 3. If they're stuck, they will look at another group next to them. They'll ask questions from them, and they answer their questions for them. I don't have to do anything. I just kind of walk around and facilitate what's going on. As you can see, one boy is taking notes, one group is sitting there looking at each other, they're asking questions to go through that way. Here was a question in my 7th grade advanced class, solve a fraction question. -3 5/9 plus 1 2/9, and as you can see, here are the responses that I got from the students. Same work, all different ways, and the students can then see what each other are doing, and then I can talk about each specific one. I'll go to one board, I'll walk to the other board. The students stand and walk over. In their notes, this is the stuff that they copy down. If they like the way the person over here did it, that's the one they'll copy down. If they like this way, they'll copy this one down. And I'll tell them, they're all right. You can do it whichever way to go through it. As you can see here, they're still standing around, walking around. The desks in group of 3, their stuff's on there, their paper, but they're writing everything down, going that way. Oh, thank you.
I mean, the test used to be that you had to do them in a certain format. You had to answer in a certain format. Is that still true?
Some are, but here's the thing. It doesn't matter. As long as you can get it, we go. So on the side here, I don't even call it homework anymore. The book says don't call it homework. I call it check understanding. So as you can see, there was a question I did on the board, and you can see on the side it says page 193, 194, 4 to 18. I'll tell them, those are the questions you're responsible to know. I want you to we'll work on those in class. However, I put check understanding. Those are the 5 I want you to check to make sure you know how to do. You're responsible for all of them, but you only have to do these 5 because those are the ones I'm going to check to make sure you get. And if you look over here, I don't call it homework. They want it. They want students to check their understanding of what's taught. I want to make sure they understand it. I don't need them to do 15 questions of the same thing over and over again. And the neat thing is, when I do questions 4 to 18 in class, and I'm going to get to something in a second, they'll start with question 4. If they know how to do question 4, they may jump to question 8, and then they'll jump to question 10. And they start simple and they get gradually harder. And I call them mild, medium, and spicy questions, which is kind of neat. But the thing is, if they know how to do the hard question number 10, why do I need them to do all the others? If they can do the hard ones, they should be able to do all the other ones. And you can see I only assign 3 to 5 questions every night. So instead of the kids doing 20, 25, 30 questions, they're doing 3 to 5. And that's algebra and my regular 7th grade class, okay? I do something that I learned. They're called group quizzes. So when they're in their groups of 3, they do a group quiz. And they get a choice of 3 questions. It's the same question done 3 different ways. So they'll get, this one was on the distributed property. So the mild question is simplify the first one. That'll be worth 4 out of 5 points. If they choose to do the medium one, it's a little bit harder. That one will be worth 4.5 points. If they choose to do the spicy one, that's the hardest one. That's worth 5 points. Now the thing is, those are turned over on a desk. One person from a group will come up and pick the question, and they'll take it back to their group and they'll read it. If they pick the medium one, they'll look at it, and as a group, they have to decide, do I want to do this question? Do we know how to do it? If they say, oh, I know how to do this, let's see what the spicy one is. They'll take that one back and go grab the spicy one, and they'll look at it and, oh, that's too hard. Take it. They'll do the medium one. Or if they see the medium one's too hard, they'll go down to the mild one and do it. The mild one is what they're expected to know, but as you can see, it goes through. The kids are so much more relaxed doing this because they're with 2 other people to work on it. The whole group has to agree on the answer, otherwise they have to pick a different question. And there's less pressure on them, and they know that. The last quiz that I did this one, it was 4 questions, 20 points. If they did just the mild questions, they got a B. If they do all the spicy ones, they'll get an A. But they can do a mild, 2 medium, and a spicy. They can pick whichever one they want to go through and do. They do them up on the whiteboard. They agree on their answer. They call me over. Mr. G, is this okay? I go, do you guys agree with this? Yep. Copy it down, and then they turn it in. It's really nice. 20 minutes for a quiz sometimes, 4 questions, 5, and they are so relaxed when they're done. What do the students think? They absolutely love it. They think class goes by so fast. 47 minutes just flies by. They like it. They have fun. They can't wait to get to class. They can't wait to see which number to pick, which group they're in. They hate group number 9 because it's the one by the whiteboard. I don't understand why. But their questions, they have awesome questions, okay? They ask. I've gotten past the point of them saying, is this right? Because no, I'm going to just look at them and go, I don't know, is it? I went, oh, why do you think it's right? I go, did you ask this person? Oh, wait a minute. Did you ask this group? This group, come over, check their work. Are they right? We'll rotate around the room. We'll stop and go visit the other ones. If you want to come, as Ms. Schoeneman said, I've had 3 today come visit. I had 1 last week come visit. Just show up. It's actually a lot of fun. But thanks for listening. There's my email. If you have a question, please come. That's it. Yes, every once in a while, but now I'm more onto this.
And so with Building Thinking Classrooms, there were teachers that went to, in the summer, they went to the conference, and so they brought that back. And so Scott King, the middle school math coach, and I visited all of the middle schools, and we were able to bring some of that information to each middle school. And so when we brought it to Clark, Mr. Gustis actually demoed for the teachers, took them through a lesson, which demonstrated some classroom management techniques too, because you've got the markers, the erasers, all of the things. But by providing the math department at each middle school with that professional development, we were then able to use our Title II money to order whiteboards for all of the math teachers who wanted them, plus a copy of Building Thinking Classrooms. And so they're able to kind of dive into that, and the whiteboards just arrived today. So they have the rest of their materials ready to go, and so you'll be hearing a lot more about that. But thank you, Mr. Augustus, for sharing that and letting so many people come into your classroom. So now I would like to introduce Mrs. Erin Novak, principal of Lake Central, and she is actually going to share with us again the AP results from the high school and some great recognition there.
Mrs. Schooneman, can I interject for just 1 second? I just wanted to thank Dr. Medlin. Dr. Medlin actually went to the Building Thinking Classrooms conference over the summer with our teachers, and she helped procure the initial set of whiteboards that our teachers were using. And so I feel that it was very beneficial for the people who attended to be able to have that and then start to implement it, because it's caught on like wildfire, and I know you're using it in your own classroom at the college level. So thank you very much again for doing that.
All right, I'll go ahead and get started. This should only take about 90 minutes or so. I'm just kidding. I'll go as quickly as I can. Like I said earlier tonight, it's a good night to be the Lake Central principal. I get to talk about all the great things that have been happening. We recently received some score reports from our AP exams last spring, so I'll just kind of walk you through that. Slide number 1 is just the courses that we offer currently at Lake Central High School, all of our AP courses, I should say. In total, we have 21. Our new AP course this year is AP Pre-Calculus, and it's going very well. So far, some pretty positive feedback with that, and Mrs. Fandel is teaching that for us. On the next page, I know you all have hard copies as well. On the next page is just a breakdown of all of the scores from last year. So in May of 2023, I didn't include any of the independent study ones. I just did the ones with a larger population. But what I like to focus my attention on when I'm looking at these scores is that first column. And if you look, those are exams that received a 3 or higher. And just to pinpoint a few, if you look at Calculus BC, AP Chemistry, 92%, 96% of those students taking those exams are scoring a 3 or higher. And of course, the significance of that 3 or higher is that they are earning college credit by receiving that score on that exam. So if you just take a quick glance down that column, you see a lot of courses that are in the 90s, 70s. That's pretty impressive, and kudos to our teachers, which I will talk more about in a little bit. Going to the next slide, I always like to take that information and say, all right, that looks great, we're doing awesome, but compared to what? So compared to the state of Indiana, and this is the latest data that I could find from the state of Indiana. Prior to this, they only released data up until 2019, and then I had found a quick chart on 2020. But this is the most updated I could find from the state of Indiana, and it does break down the scores from 2021 and 2022. So if you just glance down at the bottom of that, in 2022, 50% of all testers in the state of Indiana scored a 3 or better. And in 2021, 48% of all testers scored a 3 or better. So pretty good, but this is where I like to brag about Lake Central on the next page. So if you remember those scores, Indiana was doing 54 and 48%. So if you look at Lake Central scores from 2022 and 2023, we are above the state of Indiana with 62% of testers earning a 3 or better in 2023 and 63% of testers, so we're pretty consistent as well, earning a 3 or better from 2022. So we are above the state average, which is a great accomplishment. Moving to the next slide, just a brief overview of trends that we saw in 2023 and looking at our scores. In 2023, we had 82 more students take AP exams, so we did have a bigger population taking the exams. We had 104 more exams than in 2022, so our total exams went from 1372 to 1476, so keep in mind that multiple students will take multiple exams. So we had more students, we had more exams, and if you look at that line chart, you can also see in 2023, we saw a positive trend of students moving from a score of 3 to earning more 4s. So overall, pretty positive results and trends that we are seeing in 2023. All right, and then the College Board gave out kind of report cards to schools this year and honor rolls, so I'll talk about that in the next 2 or 3 slides. What we received at Lake Central High School was the AP Access Award, and that recognizes that we provide all students the chance to participate in AP, including students of underrepresented populations. So if you go back to early in this board meeting, when we were recognizing the different minority groups and underrepresented populations, rural, small towns, there's some of those criteria as well. Lake Central High School is fitting the bill for that, and we are having a lot of success with our students performing very well on those exams. So we did receive that award. And on our little honor roll page, we were awarded the silver status. And there's a lot of information on here. So you can receive a bronze, a silver, a gold, or platinum. So overall, we are silver, which is a great accomplishment. And it's broken down into those 3 categories. College culture is the percent of students in the graduating class. So they took our graduating class of 2023, which was 783 students. So the percent of students out of 783 who have taken at least 1 exam at any time in high school. So we are in the silver category. We're right at 50% there. College credit is the percent of students in graduating class who score 3 or above on any AP exam at any time in high school. We're very close to moving up to the gold criteria in that. We're about 5% away. So right now we are in the silver category. And when it comes to college optimization, we are knocking that out of the water. That's the percent of students in the graduating class who took 5 or more AP exams in high school, where at least 1 exam was taken as a freshman or sophomore. And we are in the platinum category for that at 15%. So there is some room for growth. I think when it comes to college credit, we're very close with that. We're about 2% away. So in setting some goals for next year, that's one of the things that we're going to be working and seeing if we can close that 2% gap and see if we can get to the gold status there. So moving forward and setting some goals, we'd like to work with our school counselors, and I know we do a great job on this, but just identifying students who have AP potential. When they take a PSAT exam, it does give us a breakdown of information and scores them based on their questions that they're answering on those exams, if they would be successful in a potential AP class. So we do use that data. Our counselors are using that, but again, that's something that we will talk about more in depth. We'd like to work with our AP teachers in helping kind of identify deficiencies and getting those students to earn more 3s, more 4s, more 5s. I mean, they're doing an outstanding job as is, but again, the more the merrier, I guess. And encourage future students, in listening to all the presentations about working with some of the younger students and getting them more engaged, encouraging future students to pursue AP courses and exams as 9th and 10th graders. I think when students start high school, it's a big change. It's a different world, and they may be hesitant to take an AP course. They may just, want to play it safe, but I think those are more conversations that we can have, and we can encourage them to do more AP if they feel that they're up for the challenge. This doesn't really tie into AP, I guess it does in a way, but this is also information I've recently received, and when I put all the data together, you can see a nice positive upward trend. So our 2023 Lake Central graduation rate was 96.27%. So again, more information to be proud of. And again, like I said, our teachers do a dynamic job. I always want to give them all the credit. They're the ones, I call them the heart and soul of our AP program. All of our teachers are the heart and soul of our school, and I know they go to extra trainings. Some of them do reading of exams. They put a lot of work, a lot of effort into this. So kudos to them. They deserve a lot of recognition for what they do. I also wanted to acknowledge Mrs. Beth Toth. She's our AP coordinator. She's one of our guidance administrative assistants and does so much with our AP students and getting them ready for the exams, ordering exams, and all that fun stuff behind the scenes. And then one final thing, in the packets I gave you, I did print out the 5-year report of AP exams, so you can look back to 2019 and see the data from each course and its exams, the breakdown of scores. If you have a lull in your Thanksgiving dinner conversations, you can pull that out and talk about that. And that's that. Thank you. I think it just, great. Thank you so much.
All right, so we'll go right back to Mrs. Schoeneman and her requests.
Great. Thank you. For my first item, I'm seeking your approval for the professional leave request that you've received in your board packet.
Move to approve of the professional leave requests.
Motion by Dr. Medlin,
Second.
second by Dr. Malco. Any questions, discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes.
Thank you. And I am also seeking your approval for the field trip requests, also received in your board packet.
Move to approve.
Motion by Mr. Marshall.
Second.
Second by Mrs. Kelly. Any discussion, questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for those presentations. And our Director of Student Services, Mrs. Garmala.
Thank you. My first item tonight is to seek your approval for the professional leave requests that were included in your packet.
Motion to approve?
We have a motion by Mrs. Kelly and a second. Second by Dr. Malco. Any discussion, questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes.
Thank you. My second item is to just give the board an update on the Indiana Education Scholarship Account Program. I talked about this briefly, I think, over the summer as it was first introduced, and I just wanted to share some more information now that we are beginning to see some of the impacts on the district from this. Yes, yeah. So I included a handout in your packet. The first explains the eligibility. So any student who's a resident of Indiana who has an active IEP ISP or Choice School Education Plan is eligible. They do have to meet the income requirements, which are similar to that for the Choice Voucher Program. So really for a family of 4, if they make less than $222,000 a year, they're eligible. And what this program does is it sort of allows parents to capture the dollars that would be spent on on special education in a public school and use that as they see fit. So I included a chart here that shows how much money a family could potentially access through an education scholarship account. This is unique to the district within which they live in. So they can access the tuition support dollars, so that amount is listed there, about $5,800. And then based on their students' identified disability, they can earn the additional APC funds. So some of what we have seen so far is that facilities that have been approved as ESA providers are sending parents our way to be evaluated to determine eligibility. However, those ESA providers don't know much about special education or our eligibility criteria. So they've gotten a little frustrated with us when students have not qualified for services. Parents are very confused by the rules. It's not being made very clear to them. I have spent a lot of time on the phone with parents, as have our staff members who support some of our non-public schools, and trying to explain this to parents. So then we sort of bear the brunt of that frustration when it's really not ours to bear. We have seen a significant increase in evaluation requests. One of our non-public schools is an ESA provider. We typically would get like 2 referrals from them a year. We received 6 requests from them in the first 9 weeks. So every one of those requests requires our staff to review student records, meet with the parents, potentially go through an evaluation, only to find out that the parents don't want our services at all.
No, that's not new. You've always.
We
provided
always
us
have to
services.
do that, but the issue with this is
Right.
now we may be going through it for no reason.
Right.
It's also been a little bit time-consuming as we coordinate with our surrounding districts. So we did have to get some guidance from the Department of Ed. If students aren't residents of Lake Central, we cannot offer them an IEP. That has to come through their home school district. So even though the private school is located within our boundaries, we really can't do the evaluation that's required for the ESA. That part was not well communicated or understood by surrounding districts. So I've had to spend, all the special ed directors in the area have had to spend a lot of time kind of working through those issues.
So, say that all again. Let me make sure I understand.
So
this.
a student has to be offered an IEP by their home school district.
Right.
So if they are not currently eligible for services, even if they live within Lake Central, or if they're attending a school within Lake Central, we can't offer them an IEP. So while traditionally we would be responsible for that evaluation, I have to send them back to their home school to get it. Some of the home schools don't want to conduct that evaluation because the child is receiving services within our district. But if it's because of the ASA, they have to do that through the home district. And so part of the reason all of this is so confusing is that this program is operated by the Department of the Treasury, which really has no understanding of any of these special education laws. So when I listed at the end of this document just sort of ongoing questions that we have, will that Department of the Treasury be reaching out to the Department of Ed or the Office of Special Education to better understand what it is that we do in order to fine-tune the information they're giving out to parents? My professional organization, iCase, is advocating for this. I'm involved, having been one who's had a lot of experience with it so far this year. As I said, we have to do these initial evaluations, which has increased our evaluation load. How often are we going to have to redetermine eligibility? Is it a one and done? Once students are eligible, they're eligible forever, or are parents going to be coming back to us for repeated evaluations? We don't know that yet. Another question is, do we have to continue to offer FAPE to these students? So parents have to reject all school services in order to access ESA funds. But what we don't know right now is if we have to meet with them every year in order to continue to offer FAPE, or once they reject it, they're no longer our responsibility. And then my biggest question is, is there going to be any oversight of these ESA providers? They are providing services to students in lieu of special education. We all know as a public school, we have to provide a lot of proof that what we're doing is working. We have to provide parents with a lot of data. So far, we've not seen anything indicating these ESA providers will have to do the same thing. I have concerns for students if, there are people accessing these funds that maybe aren't providing quality services. So again, ICASE, my professional organization, is continuing to kind of advocate for maybe some improved rules and additional oversight, but I wanted to let you know what our experience has been so far, and I'll continue to update the board.
Thank you, Rebecca.
Thank you.
I find that to be so interesting. It's managed by the Treasury. And we all know the source of this, right? It wasn't from educators. All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Now on to our Director of Facilities, Mr. Ledger.
Thank you, Mrs. Seuss. Just a brief update tonight for the board on the capital projects ongoing. At the Bibbage project at the classroom additions, we have had all the asphalt binders down now since our last board meeting. We have all the exterior framing done, all the exterior masonry is done on the 4 and 10 classroom addition. The window frames are in, and we'll finish putting the glass in tomorrow. All the mechanical rough-ins are done at the 10 classroom addition. The plumbing and electric is done at the 4 classroom. We'll finish up the mechanical and heating into this week. We have started drywall at the 10 classroom addition, and we'll start drywall at the 4 classroom addition next week. On the cafeteria, all the framing's done, roofing's done, and we'll start window frames here probably over there at the end of this week or beginning of next week. The metal panels are due the end of the month. We've just got a couple days of fine grading left at the site, just waiting for it to dry up a little bit with the fall rains we've been having. That's pretty much it for that. Any questions on Bibbage? Grimmer, basically, as I said before, we are pretty much substantially complete. Since our last meeting, we've pretty much wrapped up all the control wiring. We've got a few little thick cabinet heaters, exhaust fans to do. We'll wrap that up this week. We're going to decommission some more electrical panels in a boiler room this week. And then we did get word on our final missing air handler unit, which is supposed to now arrive after the holidays of the first of 2024. So we've kind of all ready for that. It will only take us a couple of days to slide it in. Unfortunately, as I've told the board, it's basically it just serves a boiler room. So we were very fortunate that that's the one that is missing. Delayed rather, so that's all for Grimmer. The varsity baseball lights, the couple days before fall break, we pulled all the wire here, and then on Friday of fall break, we had a power outage so we could terminate all the main wiring. All the all the baseball light panels are complete and ready. We are going to be putting together the softball panels this week, and we're waiting on a couple parts for the main distribution panel. It's supposed to be here beginning next week, and then we are hoping to turn them on and commission them before Thanksgiving. That's all I have.
That's very exciting, thank you.
Thank you. And now on to our Director of Business Services, Mr. James.
Thank you. My first item is to seek your approval for the professional leave request in your board packet.
Move to approve the professional leave requests.
Motion by Dr. Medlin, and I will second that. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes.
Thank you. My second item is to seek your approval for the donations that were in your board packet, plus the additional donations that were at your stations this evening.
Move to approve.
Motion by Mr. Marshall.
Second?
Second by Mrs. Kelly. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes.
Thank you. Just to give a board a little bit of an update, for about the past 6 months, we have been looking at alternatives to our current financial and payroll software systems. Went through a process and brought in multiple vendors in the spring, had some concerns, readdressed it here in the fall, knowing that our cybersecurity and software security is our biggest concern when you see that neighboring school districts, not only statewide, but to us, have had security breaches. And our current software is a concern for us, not only on the security side, but we're also, not so sure how much longer they're going to be around. So we've been looking at a variety of vendors, and we have found one that really has checked the boxes that we're looking for. High on the security, a web-based software that is more is cloud-based, so it's physically safer than a server being held here in the building, and it's less apt to be, hacked by someone getting in through our email system. So we have been working with Boyce Systems, and Boyce is used in over 200 of the school districts in the state. Their pricing was very competitive, and we are working through the agreement now, but I seek the board's approval to move forward with our agreement with Boyce to bring them on board as our new software for financial and payroll vendor, hopefully to go live by the beginning of the next school year.
I'd like to move that we accept the director's recommendation.
Motion by Mr. Marshall,
Second.
second by Dr. Medlin. Any questions, discussion?
Is it a significant price increase, or?
I will say it is a higher price than what we're paying for now, but you also get what you pay for. And this pricing was very competitive and actually on the lower end of some of the other vendors that we looked at.
And it's being used by several school districts, you said over 200?
About 65% of the schools across the state.
So it's got some good background there.
If they're an Indiana-based company, so they speak the language of the Indiana Department of Ed, and again, check the boxes that we were looking for.
Thank you.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. Thank you.
Thank you. That's all I
And
have.
there are no public comments, so we'll move right into board comments and consideration of future agenda items. Mr. Marshall?
I'll
Mrs. Kelly?
pass it down.
Mrs. Kelly?
It's close to
None this
the
evening.
11:59 hour.
I'm sorry, Ms. Kelly?
No comments this evening.
Dr. Medlin?
No comment, thank you.
Dr. Malco?
Well, yes, I'd like to say congratulations to the state champion Lake Central cheerleaders.
That's right.
Nice work. And the St. John Fire Department brought them into town, or to the school, I should say, which is really cool.
All right. And I have nothing, so we'll move right into board calendar, future activities. Dr. Veraco?
I don't know about the rest of you, this time change did not work out well for me tonight. I'm tired. Our next meeting here is November 20th, which is Thanksgiving week. Also, those of you who signed up, remember, we're at Teebles for the School Board Association meeting Wednesday night. Thank you.
All right, do we have a motion for adjournment?
Motion to adjourn.
We are adjourned.